morning had started like any other, quiet and calm, with the soft sunlight streaming through the thin curtains of a modest home. The maid's daughter, a gentle girl with eyes wide with innocence, was helping her mother clean the small living room. The house wasn't large, but it had a warmth that came from the small family living there, and it was filled with laughter most days. Yet, today, a strange feeling hung in the air, something that made her heart beat faster, something she could not name. She noticed it first when she heard noises coming from the back of the house. It was a soft shuffling, barely noticeable, but enough to make her pause. She looked at her mother, who was busy dusting the shelves, unaware of the subtle disturbance. The girl's intuition told her that something was not right. She shook her head, trying to convince herself it was nothing, just the wind or the old house settling. But her heart did not agree. As she continued her chores, the noise grew louder, and it seemed to be coming from the main living area. She walked carefully, trying not to alarm her mother, but her footsteps were nervous, betraying her fear. When she peeked around the corner, her eyes widened in shock. A stranger was inside the house. The girl froze, her body locked in fear, unable to move or even scream. The stranger was not someone she recognized. They were moving quickly, rummaging through the house, pulling open drawers, and looking around with an intensity that made the girl's heart pound. She wanted to shout, to run, to call for help, but the words got stuck in her throat. Her mind raced, thinking of what she could do. She knew she had to act fast. The safety of her mother depended on her courage. She remembered the police station not far from their home. Her mother often told her that in times of trouble, they could always seek help from the police. The thought gave her a spark of hope, a tiny flame in the darkness of fear. Without a second thought, she turned and ran, her feet pounding the pavement, tears streaming down her face. She shouted as she ran, her voice breaking, calling for someone to help. "Please, follow me home," she cried, her words echoing through the quiet streets. The girl didn't stop. She ran faster than she ever had before, ignoring the burning in her legs and the fear that threatened to overwhelm her. She had to reach the police station. She had to make sure someone came quickly. Every step was filled with urgency, and every second felt like an eternity. Her heart was racing, and her mind was filled with images of her mother and the stranger in the house. When she finally reached the station, she was out of breath, her chest heaving, and tears staining her cheeks. The officers inside looked up, startled by the sudden appearance of the young girl, who was crying and shouting for help. They could see the fear in her eyes, the desperation in her voice. Without hesitation, they stood up, ready to follow her, knowing that something serious must be happening. The girl tried to speak, but the words tumbled out in a rush, jumbled and frantic. She explained as best as she could, telling them that there was someone inside her home, that her mother was there, and that she didn't know what to do. The officers listened carefully, nodding and asking questions, their faces serious. They could tell that this was no ordinary call. As they prepared to leave, one officer put a reassuring hand on the girl's shoulder. "Stay close to us. Everything will be okay," he said, his voice calm and steady. The girl nodded, trying to take comfort in the words, though her fear still lingered like a shadow over her heart. She led the officers through the streets, pointing the way, her small hands trembling but determined. When they arrived at the house, the officers approached cautiously. The girl stayed close behind them, her eyes scanning every corner, her mind racing with worry for her mother. The neighborhood was quiet, the usual sounds of morning replaced by a tense silence. Neighbors peered out of their windows, curious about the commotion, whispering to each other about the young girl and the police officers moving toward the house. The officers reached the door and signaled to each other, their movements precise and careful. The girl's heart pounded as she watched, knowing that the next moments could change everything. They knocked and called out, announcing themselves, but there was no immediate response. The girl's anxiety grew, and she felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Finally, one of the officers gently pushed the door open. The girl held her breath, her eyes wide, and stepped forward just enough to see inside. The living room looked slightly disheveled, but it was the figure of her mother that made her stomach twist with relief and fear at the same time. Her mother was safe, unharmed, though a bit shaken, standing in the middle of the room, looking around in confusion and worry. The officers quickly began to search the house, methodically and carefully, making sure that no one else was hiding inside. The girl stayed close, her hand tightly gripping her mother's. She felt a mix of emotions: fear, relief, and pride for having acted so bravely. The danger had been real, but she had done the right thing. As the search continued, the girl realized that the situation was more serious than she had imagined. There were signs of forced entry, and it was clear that someone had been inside without permission. The officers noted everything carefully, asking questions and making notes, while the girl and her mother tried to process what had just happened. The realization that their home had been violated sent shivers down her spine, but she also felt a strange sense of strength, knowing that her quick thinking had prevented something worse. Neighbors gathered around, whispering among themselves, amazed at the girl's courage. They offered kind words and support, praising her bravery. The girl blushed at the attention, feeling both embarrassed and proud. She had always been a quiet, shy child, but today she had shown a courage that few could imagine. The officers reassured the mother and daughter that they would handle everything and make sure that their home was safe again. They promised to investigate and find whoever had caused the trouble. The girl felt a wave of relief wash over her, knowing that help had arrived and that they were no longer alone. As the morning passed, the girl reflected on what had happened. She realized that even in the face of fear, taking action was the most important thing. Her bravery had made a difference, and she had protected her mother and herself from potential harm. The experience had changed her, giving her a new sense of confidence and strength. The sun continued to rise, casting a warm light over the small home. The girl held her mother's hand, feeling the bond between them grow even stronger. They had faced a frightening situation together, and they had come out safe and stronger. The officers continued their work, ensuring that everything was secure, and the girl knew that she would never forget this day. It was a day that had begun like any other, quiet and calm, but had turned into a story of bravery, quick thinking, and the power of a young girl's courage. She had run to the police crying, pleading for help, and in doing so, had changed the course of what could have been a tragedy. She had shown that even the smallest voice, filled with fear and hope, could make a huge difference in the world. And as she stood there, hand in hand with her mother, watching the officers work, she knew that her actions had made a lasting impact, not just on her family, but on everyone who witnessed her bravery that day. After the officers entered the house, the girl stayed close to her mother, her small hand gripping her mother's tightly. Every sound, every movement in the house made her heart jump. She could hear the officers talking softly to each other, their voices calm but serious, and she tried to listen, hoping to understand what was happening. She had never been in such a situation before, and the fear in her chest was almost overwhelming. Yet she felt a strange sense of courage, knowing that she had brought help. Her mother tried to reassure her, speaking in soft, calming tones. "It's going to be okay," she said repeatedly, though her own hands shook slightly. The girl nodded, trying to absorb the comfort in her mother's words, but her mind kept replaying the moments before she ran to the police. She remembered the stranger in the house, the fear in her mother's eyes, and the rush of adrenaline as she ran through the streets. She realized that everything had happened so quickly, but her actions had made a difference. The officers moved through the house carefully, checking each room. They examined every corner, looking for signs of forced entry, hidden items, or anything that could explain why someone had been inside without permission. The girl followed at a safe distance, her curiosity mixing with nervousness. She wanted to know what was going on, but she also knew she had to stay calm. As they entered the kitchen, one officer noticed something unusual. There were footprints on the floor, leading from the back door to the counter. They were small but distinct, and it was clear that someone had been there recently. The officer knelt to examine them closely, noting the size and direction. The girl watched silently, her mind racing. Could the stranger have taken something? Could they still be hiding somewhere? The officers asked the girl questions, trying to piece together the events. She explained everything she had seen, from the moment she noticed the noise to her frantic run to the police station. She described the strangers' movements, the things they had touched, and the way they had looked at her and her mother. Her voice trembled at times, but she spoke with honesty and detail, and the officers listened carefully, nodding as they took notes. Her mother joined in, providing information about recent visitors, unusual activities, and anything that might help the investigation. The officers reassured them both that they were doing the right thing by reporting everything and that their safety was their top priority. The girl felt a small sense of relief hearing this, knowing that the adults around her were in control and that help was here. The officers decided to expand the search, moving to the bedrooms and other areas of the house. The girl followed as closely as she could, always staying behind the officers, her eyes wide and alert. She noticed small things she had never paid attention to before, the way the furniture was arranged, the little cracks in the walls, the sounds of the house settling. Everything seemed different now, filled with tension and a sense of urgency. In one of the bedrooms, an officer found a small bag that did not belong to the household. It was partially hidden under the bed, and the officer carefully opened it. Inside were items that made the girl's stomach turn, things that belonged to her mother, items that had been moved or taken without permission. The officer held the bag carefully, showing it to the girl and her mother, who both recognized the items immediately. The girl felt a mix of anger and fear, knowing that someone had invaded their home and violated their space. The officers continued to investigate, checking every nook and cranny. They found small signs of forced entry, scratches on the windows, and other subtle indications that someone had been there with ill intentions. The girl learned to observe carefully, noticing things she had never noticed before. She realized how brave the officers were, moving through the house with calm determination, and she felt a small spark of pride that she had helped bring them there. Outside, neighbors gathered, watching the scene unfold. Some whispered about the girl's bravery, while others speculated about what might have happened. The girl felt a little embarrassed by the attention, but she also felt proud. She had faced fear head-on and had not hesitated to seek help. Her courage had brought the authorities to their home and had ensured that her mother was safe. The officers decided to call for backup to ensure that everything was secure. More officers arrived, moving with precision and professionalism. They set up a perimeter around the house, making sure that no one could enter or leave without their knowledge. The girl and her mother watched from a safe distance, feeling both anxious and reassured. The presence of the additional officers gave them a sense of security they had not felt before. As the investigation continued, the officers asked the girl to recount the events again, this time in more detail. She described the noises she had heard, the way the stranger moved, and the exact path she had taken when running to the police. Her memory was sharp, and she noticed details that even the officers had missed. Her clear observations helped them understand the situation better and allowed them to plan their next steps. The girl's mother held her close, whispering words of encouragement. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "You were brave, and you protected us both." The girl nodded, feeling the weight of her mother's words. She had always wanted to be brave, but she never imagined she would have to act so quickly in a real-life situation. Now, she understood that courage was not about being fearless, but about taking action even when you are afraid. The officers moved to check the backyard and other outdoor areas. The girl followed, noticing small details like footprints in the dirt and broken twigs on the ground. She realized that the stranger had been careful, but not careful enough to avoid leaving traces. The officers documented everything, taking photos and notes to ensure that the investigation would be thorough. As they completed the initial search, the officers gathered the girl and her mother in the living room. They explained that they would continue the investigation, checking nearby areas and interviewing neighbors to gather more information. The girl listened attentively, absorbing every word. She understood that the danger was not over yet, but she also felt a growing sense of confidence, knowing that she had done everything she could to help. The girl's mind wandered briefly to the moments before she ran to the police. She remembered the fear, the adrenaline, and the determination that had propelled her forward. She realized that she had acted instinctively, guided by a desire to protect her mother and herself. That instinct had been strong, and it had guided her correctly. The thought made her feel proud and empowered, knowing that even a young girl could make a difference in a serious situation. The officers continued their work, taking statements from the girl and her mother and planning the next steps of the investigation. They praised the girl for her bravery and her clear observations, telling her that she had played a crucial role in keeping her home safe. The girl felt a sense of accomplishment, mixed with relief and lingering fear. She had faced a frightening situation and had emerged stronger and wiser. Throughout the day, the girl stayed close to her mother, learning about the process of investigation and understanding how the officers worked to ensure safety. She observed their careful movements, their attention to detail, and their calm demeanor, realizing that bravery came in many forms. It was not just about facing danger, but also about being precise, observant, and thoughtful. As the day went on, the officers began to piece together a clearer picture of what had happened. The girl listened with fascination, realizing that her actions had helped prevent a potentially serious incident. Her heart swelled with a sense of purpose, knowing that she had contributed to something important. The realization that she could be brave and helpful in real situations gave her a new sense of confidence. By the evening, the immediate danger had passed, and the girl and her mother could finally breathe a little easier. The officers assured them that they would continue the investigation and that their home would be safe. The girl felt a sense of relief wash over her, knowing that help had arrived in time and that they were no longer alone. As they sat together, the girl reflected on the day's events. She thought about the fear, the urgency, and the courage that had guided her actions. She realized that even in the face of uncertainty and danger, taking action was the most important thing. Her bravery had made a difference, and she had learned valuable lessons about courage, responsibility, and the importance of seeking help. The sun set gently, casting warm light over the small house. The girl held her mother's hand tightly, feeling the bond between them grow stronger. They had faced a frightening experience together and had come out safe. The girl knew that she would never forget this day, that it had changed her forever, and that her courage had left a lasting impact on her family and her community. The quiet of the evening was comforting, a stark contrast to the chaos of the morning. The girl felt a sense of peace, knowing that she had done the right thing and that help had arrived in time. She looked around her home, appreciating it in a way she never had before. The house that had seemed ordinary now felt like a place of safety and love, a place worth protecting. The girl's thoughts drifted to the future, to the lessons she had learned and the strength she had discovered within herself. She knew that life would present challenges, but she also knew that she had the courage to face them. Her experience that day had shown her that even a small person could make a big difference, that bravery was not about size or age, but about heart and determination. As night fell, the girl and her mother settled in for the evening, grateful for each other and for the help that had come just in time. They had faced fear, uncertainty, and danger, and they had emerged stronger. The girl's heart was still filled with a mixture of emotions, but above all, it was filled with pride, courage, and hope for the days to come. She had learned that even in the darkest moments, taking action could change everything, and that knowledge would stay with her forever. The next morning brought a quiet tension over the small house. Though the immediate danger had passed, the girl could not shake off the memories of the previous day. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind against the windows, made her heart beat faster. She stayed close to her mother as they moved around the house, each of them aware that their world had changed in a matter of hours. What had seemed safe and ordinary was now layered with a new sense of caution. The officers returned early, ready to continue their investigation. They had asked the girl to come along, as her observations from yesterday were crucial in piecing together what had happened. She walked carefully behind them, holding her mother's hand for reassurance. Her mind was alert, noticing every detail, the scratches on the walls, the disturbed objects, and even the small footprints that had been partially cleaned by the intruder. Each clue mattered, and the girl realized that her memory and attention to detail were important. As the officers examined the living room, they found a hidden compartment behind the cabinet, something the girl had never noticed before. They carefully opened it, revealing a small box containing items that were out of place. The girl's eyes widened as she recognized some of the objects. They were familiar, belonging to her mother, but they had been deliberately hidden. The officers explained that this could be a clue about the intruder's intentions and that it might indicate the person had been looking for something specific. The girl's stomach tightened, realizing that their home had been targeted for a reason. One officer asked the girl if she remembered anything unusual from the day before, anything that might seem unimportant but could help. She thought hard, recalling the faint sound she had heard just before seeing the intruder. It was a small jingle like a keychain or a piece of jewelry moving. She described it carefully, and the officers noted it as a potential lead. The girl felt a sense of contribution, understanding that her attention and courage had helped uncover something significant. Her mother looked at her with pride. "You were very brave," she whispered. "You helped us more than you know." The girl blushed, unsure how to feel about the praise. She was still scared, but the recognition from her mother gave her a small glow of confidence. She understood that being brave didn't mean not feeling fear, but acting despite it. The officers decided to speak with neighbors who had seen the girl running to the station. They hoped that someone might have noticed something unusual or remembered seeing a suspicious person around the house. The girl accompanied her mother and the officers, staying close as they knocked on doors and spoke to people. She listened quietly, absorbing the conversations and learning how carefully information needed to be collected. She realized that bravery was only part of the solution. Attention, patience, and communication were equally important. One neighbor recalled seeing a shadow moving quickly near the girl's house early in the morning. Another remembered hearing a door slam softly but had assumed it was just the wind. The officers took careful notes, connecting these small details to the girl's account. Each observation added to the bigger picture, and the girl felt a sense of amazement at how small details could come together to reveal the truth. She began to see the investigation not as a chaotic process but as a careful puzzle, one that needed patience and focus. Back at the house, the officers continued their search, this time focusing on items that might have been tampered with. They checked the locks on windows and doors, examined the kitchen for disturbances, and looked through personal belongings with care. The girl followed quietly, learning how thorough they were. She was impressed by their methodical approach and realized that solving a mystery required both courage and intelligence. During the inspection, the officers discovered another hidden space behind the wardrobe in the girl's bedroom. Inside, they found a small notebook filled with cryptic notes. The girl's eyes widened as she recognized her own handwriting in some sections, though she did not remember writing most of it. The officers carefully read the notebook, noting that it might contain important information about why the intruder had come. They explained to the girl that even small details, like her writing, could provide vital clues. She felt a mix of confusion and excitement, understanding that her life had become entwined with something bigger than she had imagined. The investigation revealed that the intruder had been searching for a specific object, something that belonged to the household but was not obvious at first glance. The officers explained that criminals often look for items of value or importance, and they were trying to determine exactly what had motivated the intrusion. The girl felt a mixture of fear and curiosity, realizing that her home had been more significant than she had ever thought. She had lived her life thinking of their house as ordinary, but now it seemed connected to secrets and hidden stories. As the day progressed, the girl noticed how her mother's strength had grown. Though initially shaken, her mother now moved with a quiet determination, helping the officers, organizing items, and making sure the girl stayed calm. The girl admired her mother's courage and felt a deep bond with her, knowing that they were facing the challenge together. Each moment brought them closer, united by fear, hope, and determination. The officers decided to set up temporary surveillance around the house, ensuring that no one could enter unnoticed. They explained to the girl that they would keep watch for any signs of the intruder returning. The girl watched with fascination as they installed cameras and motion detectors, realizing that safety required planning and foresight, not just bravery. She understood that vigilance was an important part of protecting herself and her family. Later in the afternoon, the officers reviewed the evidence they had gathered. They spoke to the girl about what had been found, showing her the hidden compartments, the notebook, and the footprints. She listened carefully, understanding that each piece of evidence told a story. She realized that her observations had been crucial in guiding the investigation and that her actions had made a tangible difference. Her heart swelled with a sense of accomplishment, though she remained cautious, knowing that the situation was still delicate. The girl also noticed how the community responded. People whispered about her bravery, expressing admiration and concern. She felt both embarrassed and proud, realizing that her actions had inspired others. She began to understand that courage could ripple outward, affecting not just herself but everyone around her. The thought gave her a new sense of purpose, motivating her to stay strong and continue helping in any way she could. As evening approached, the girl and her mother sat together in the living room, reflecting on the day's events. The officers were still working, but there was a sense of progress and hope. The girl felt a mix of relief and lingering fear, knowing that while the immediate danger had passed, the investigation was ongoing. She understood that courage and vigilance needed to continue until the threat was fully resolved. The girl thought about how quickly her life had changed. A normal morning had turned into a tense, frightening adventure that had tested her courage and wits. She had run to the police, faced her fear, and helped uncover important clues. She had learned that bravery was about action, observation, and quick thinking. It was about protecting the people she loved and standing strong in the face of uncertainty. Her mother held her hand and spoke softly. "You've grown so much today. You were brave, observant, and strong. I'm proud of you." The girl felt tears prick her eyes, not from fear this time, but from a mixture of relief, pride, and love. She understood that courage was not just about confronting danger. It was about acting with thought, care, and heart. Night fell, casting shadows across the quiet house. The girl sat by the window, looking out at the street where she had run just 2 days ago. She remembered the adrenaline, the fear, and the determination that had carried her forward. She realized that even a small person could make a big impact. Her courage had set in motion a chain of events that had protected her mother and uncovered hidden truths. She felt a sense of maturity, knowing that she had faced a situation that most adults might struggle with. The officers left for the night, promising to continue the investigation in the morning. The girl and her mother finally allowed themselves to rest, though the memories of the day lingered. The girl thought about the lessons she had learned: courage, observation, attention to detail, and the importance of seeking help. She understood that bravery was not just a feeling but a series of actions that could change outcomes and save lives. As she drifted off to sleep, the girl felt a quiet pride. She had acted when it mattered most, helped protect her home, and contributed to uncovering the truth. The house that had once seemed ordinary was now a place of courage, strength, and resilience. She knew that life would continue to present challenges, but she also knew that she had the power to face them with determination and heart. The night passed quietly, and the girl woke with a renewed sense of purpose. She was ready to continue helping, learning, and facing whatever challenges lay ahead. Her bravery had made a difference, and she understood that even the smallest actions, taken with courage and thought, could change everything. She was no longer just a young girl in a quiet house. She was someone capable of making a real impact, someone whose courage could shape the future of her family and her community. The following day began with a quiet tension in the house. The girl woke early, feeling the lingering anxiety from the previous days. She sat by the window, watching the soft morning light filter through the trees, and took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. Her mother was already in the kitchen, preparing breakfast with careful movements, her own mind weighed with concern. Despite the calm exterior, both of them felt the unease of knowing that the events they had faced were far from ordinary. The officers arrived again, bringing with them a sense of reassurance. Today, they planned to expand the investigation beyond the house, hoping to find clues that would reveal more about the intruder and their motives. The girl walked alongside them, clutching her mother's hand, feeling a mixture of nervousness and determination. She knew that every detail she remembered could help, and she wanted to contribute as much as she could. The officers began by revisiting the backyard, retracing the path that the intruder had taken. They pointed out small marks on the grass and scratches on the fence. The girl observed carefully, realizing that even the smallest signs could tell a story. She noticed a bent nail on the fence and a faint mark on the ground, details that had seemed insignificant at first. The officers praised her attention, explaining that even minor clues could lead to major breakthroughs in understanding the intruder's actions. Next, the officers interviewed neighbors again, focusing on anyone who might have seen something unusual around the house in recent weeks. The girl stayed close to her mother, listening to the questions and answers, absorbing every word. One neighbor mentioned seeing a strange figure walking past the house late at night, carrying a small bag. Another had noticed faint lights flickering in the window during odd hours. Each account was carefully recorded, and the girl realized that these small observations could be crucial in solving the mystery. Back inside the house, the officers decided to examine the personal belongings more thoroughly. They carefully went through drawers, cabinets, and hidden spaces, making sure nothing was overlooked. The girl followed, her curiosity growing, but she remained respectful of the process. She understood that the investigation required patience and precision. When an officer discovered a small key hidden in a drawer, the girl's eyes widened. It was unusual and did not belong to anything in the house that she knew of. The officers noted it as a potential lead, considering that it might open a lock the intruder had targeted. As the day went on, the girl reflected on the courage it had taken to run to the police. She remembered the fear, the adrenaline, and the determination that had driven her forward. Now, seeing the officers work with such care and dedication, she felt a new appreciation for the importance of bravery combined with thoughtful action. Courage, she realized, was not just about facing danger, but also about being observant and helping others solve problems. Her mother watched her quietly, noting the girl's growing maturity. She saw the seriousness in her daughter's eyes and the way she absorbed details, learning quickly from the officer's methods. The mother felt proud and relieved, knowing that her daughter had developed skills and awareness that could protect them both. She also felt gratitude toward the officers, whose calm presence had provided security and guidance. Later in the afternoon, the officers decided to conduct a careful search of nearby areas, including streets and alleys adjacent to the girl's house. They asked the girl to recall any small details that might help, and she remembered seeing a small, unfamiliar vehicle parked nearby the day before the intruder entered the house. She described its color and shape, and the officers noted it as a lead. Her observation was met with approval, and she felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that her memory had been valuable. Returning to the house, the officers focused on examining the hidden compartments and items that had been moved. They discovered a small envelope tucked away behind a picture frame. Inside was a note with cryptic writing partially torn. The girl looked at it with curiosity, feeling the mystery deepen. The officers explained that they would analyze the note for clues about the intruder's intentions. The girl realized that even the smallest piece of evidence could hold important information, and she felt a sense of importance in being part of the process. As evening approached, the girl and her mother sat together in the living room. The officers were still working, discussing the evidence and planning the next steps of the investigation. The girl felt a mix of emotions: relief that the immediate danger had passed, anxiety about what might come next, and pride in her own bravery and contribution. She reflected on the lessons she had learned: courage, observation, attention to detail, and the importance of seeking help when needed. The officers gathered the girl and her mother to explain their findings so far. They spoke about the intruder's possible motives, the significance of the hidden compartments, and the clues gathered from neighbors and the surrounding area. The girl listened intently, realizing that her observations, her courage, and her quick thinking had been critical in shaping the investigation. She felt a deep sense of accomplishment, knowing that her actions had made a real difference. Her mother squeezed her hand, speaking softly. "You've grown so much through this. You were brave, careful, and thoughtful. I'm proud of you." The girl felt tears prick her eyes, a mix of relief, pride, and love. She understood that bravery was not about being fearless, but about taking action with care, even when scared. She also recognized that courage could inspire others, as she had seen in the admiration of neighbors and the respect of the officers. Night fell, and the officers completed their initial survey of the surrounding area. They reassured the girl and her mother that they would continue their work and that they had a strong lead on the intruder. The girl felt a sense of safety knowing that the authorities were thorough and dedicated. She understood that while the situation was serious, it was being handled with care and expertise. Before going to bed, the girl reflected on the past days. She thought about the fear she had felt, the quick decisions she had made, and the courage that had driven her to seek help. She realized that bravery could take many forms, from running for help to observing carefully and contributing to solving a problem. She felt a quiet pride, knowing that she had learned something valuable about herself and the world around her. The girl's mother joined her, holding her hand and speaking softly. "You've shown strength and courage that I didn't know you had. I'm proud of you, and I know that together we can face anything." The girl smiled, feeling the warmth of her mother's words and the bond between them grow stronger. She knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, with bravery, care, and love. As she drifted off to sleep, the girl felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had learned that courage was not just about facing danger. It was about taking action, observing carefully, and helping others when it mattered most. She had discovered strength within herself that she never knew existed, and she understood that even a small person could make a big impact. The house, once ordinary, now felt like a place of resilience, bravery, and hope. She knew that the story was far from over, but she also knew that she had the courage to face whatever came next. The following morning, the girl woke with a sense of determination. She knew that the events of the past days had changed her life forever. Her small home, once a place of simple routines and quiet days, had become the center of a mystery that tested her courage, intelligence, and strength. She looked at her mother, who was quietly preparing breakfast, and felt a surge of gratitude and love. They had faced fear together and had emerged stronger, and she knew that the final chapter of this ordeal was approaching. The officers arrived early, their expressions serious but reassuring. They explained that they had followed up on the clues and leads gathered over the past few days. They had identified a suspect and had evidence pointing to a motive behind the intrusion. The girl listened intently, her heart pounding with anticipation. She realized that her observations, her bravery, and her quick thinking had helped bring the investigation to this point. She felt a mix of pride and nervousness, knowing that the resolution was near. The officers led the girl and her mother to a safe distance while they prepared to confront the suspect. The girl's mind raced with possibilities. Who could have done this? Why would anyone target their home? The officer's calm presence helped ease some of her fear, but the tension in the air was palpable. She held her mother's hand tightly, feeling the bond between them strengthen with every passing moment. Soon, the officers returned, accompanied by the suspect. The girl's eyes widened as she saw the person who had caused so much fear and confusion. The suspect looked surprised, as if they had not expected the girl's courage and the thorough investigation to uncover them. The officers explained the evidence and how the girl's observations had been crucial in identifying the intruder. The girl felt a mixture of relief and satisfaction, knowing that her bravery had helped bring justice. The suspect was taken into custody, and the officers carefully documented everything. They explained to the girl and her mother that the intruder had a reason for targeting their home, something connected to hidden items and misunderstandings that had escalated over time. The girl listened, realizing that even though the situation had been frightening, it was now being resolved properly. Her courage had prevented further harm and ensured that the truth came to light. The girl and her mother returned to the house, walking through the rooms with a new sense of safety. The living room, once filled with tension and fear, now felt peaceful. The officers had secured the house, and everything that had been disturbed was now in order. The girl felt a wave of relief, knowing that their home was finally safe again. She looked around, appreciating the warmth and comfort that had always been there, now strengthened by the courage they had shown. Throughout the day, the officers reviewed the events with the girl, explaining how her actions had helped solve the mystery. They praised her for her bravery, attention to detail, and quick thinking. The girl felt proud but also humble, understanding that courage was not about seeking recognition but about doing what was right. She realized that even small actions, taken with determination and care, could have a significant impact. Her mother hugged her tightly, whispering words of gratitude and pride. "You were incredibly brave. You protected our home and helped bring the truth to light. I'm proud of you beyond words." The girl felt tears in her eyes, not from fear this time, but from relief, pride, and love. She understood that bravery was about facing fear, protecting others, and staying calm under pressure. She had learned a lesson that would stay with her for life. Neighbors began to gather, offering congratulations and expressing admiration for the girl's courage. She felt a mixture of embarrassment and pride, realizing that her actions had inspired others. People she had known for years now looked at her with respect, acknowledging the bravery that had kept her family safe. The girl smiled quietly, understanding that true courage often went unnoticed until it was tested. The girl spent the afternoon helping the officers review the evidence one last time. They discussed the hidden compartments, the clues from the notebook, and the details she had remembered. Each piece fit together to reveal a clear picture of the events. The girl felt a sense of satisfaction knowing that her observations had been valuable. She realized that courage was not only about action but also about careful thinking and paying attention to details. As evening approached, the girl and her mother sat together in the quiet living room. The sun cast a warm glow across the house, and for the first time in days, they felt completely safe. The officers had left, promising to follow up and ensure that the intruder would face justice. The girl felt a deep sense of relief, knowing that the danger had passed and that their home was secure. The girl reflected on the past days, remembering the fear, the adrenaline, and the determination that had carried her forward. She realized that courage was not about being fearless, but about taking action even when scared. Her quick thinking, bravery, and willingness to seek help had made a real difference. She had protected her mother, preserved their home, and helped bring an intruder to justice. Her mother looked at her with pride and love. "You've grown so much through this experience. You've shown strength, courage, and wisdom beyond your years. I'm proud of you, and I'm grateful that we faced this together." The girl smiled, feeling the warmth of her mother's words. She understood that their bond had grown stronger, and that together, they could face any challenge that came their way. The girl thought about the lessons she had learned: bravery, observation, patience, and the importance of seeking help when needed. She realized that courage was not just about facing danger, but also about being thoughtful, careful, and persistent. She understood that even small actions, like running for help and observing details, could have a significant impact. She felt a deep sense of pride and confidence in herself. As night fell, the girl and her mother prepared for bed. The house was quiet, safe, and filled with a sense of peace. The girl held her mother's hand, feeling the bond between them and the strength they had discovered together. She knew that life would continue to present challenges, but she also knew that she had the courage, intelligence, and determination to face them. The events of the past days had changed her forever, giving her a new understanding of bravery, responsibility, and love. The girl drifted off to sleep, feeling a quiet sense of accomplishment. She had faced fear, taken action, and helped bring justice to her home. She had learned that courage was not about being fearless, but about acting with heart, determination, and careful thought. She had protected her mother, preserved their home, and contributed to solving a mystery. The house, once ordinary, now felt like a place of resilience, bravery, and hope. In the days that followed, life began to return to normal. The girl and her mother continued their routines, but with a new sense of confidence and security. The girl reflected on the experience often, remembering the fear, the adrenaline, and the courage that had guided her actions. She understood that bravery was not a single moment, but a series of choices made with care and heart. She had discovered strength within herself that she never knew existed, and she knew that she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The girl's courage had inspired her community, and her actions were remembered as a story of bravery and quick thinking. She realized that even a young person could make a significant difference when faced with danger. Her bond with her mother had deepened, strengthened by the shared experience of fear, action, and resolution. Together, they had faced uncertainty and emerged stronger. The girl learned that life could change in an instant, that ordinary moments could become extraordinary, and that courage could come from the most unexpected places. She understood that even in the darkest moments, taking action, observing carefully, and seeking help could lead to safety and resolution. Her bravery had not only protected her home and family, but had also inspired others, showing that even a small person could have a powerful impact. As the sun rose each day, the girl faced the world with new confidence. She knew that challenges would come, but she also knew that she had the courage, intelligence, and determination to face them. Her experience had taught her the value of quick thinking, bravery, and persistence. She had learned that even small actions could create big changes and that true courage was about protecting those you love and acting with heart. In the end, the girl understood that the events of those days had made her stronger, wiser, and more aware. She had faced fear, taken decisive action, and helped ensure justice. She had protected her mother and their home, and she had discovered an inner strength that would stay with her forever. The house, once a simple home, now stood as a symbol of courage, resilience, and hope. And the girl, who had once been timid and unsure, had become a symbol of bravery, showing that even the smallest person could change the course of events through determination, observation, and heart.